Hei og velkommen til Mediapuls, program som tar pulsen på digitale og sosiale medier, og mitt navn Hans Petter Nygaard Hansen.
Og jeg heter Marius Karlsen, og velkommen til Sommerspesial, og det fortsatt sommeren 2018.
Er det sånn vi skal prate nå?
Ja, fordi nå står Mini nummer 1 med et spade og kakke mot vinduet utenfor. Litt bekymret.
Hadde bare vært en is, men ok, hvis du har en spade, folkens, eller en is, så tar du på deg øretelefoner. Det har du kanskje da gjort, da, i og med at du hører på det her. Og så får vi se da hva som kommer, men vi drar fram gullet vårt fra...
No.
Ok, vi graver etter gullet da. Så får vi se om det gull eller gråstein, men kos dere videre på ferien, folkens. Ok, jeg løfter opp, og du drar det ned igjen.
Tilbakeblikk med Mediapuls.
Er det ikke irriterende at du får de beste ideene, de mest kreative innfallene, mens du dusjer, mens du jogger, eller mens du opptatt med noe helt annet enn det du tenker på? Men det skjer nesten aldri på jobb. Aldri når du sitter bak kontorpulten og skal nå skal jeg være kreativ, nå skal jeg virkelig skape noe fantastisk, eller i det der helsikes møtet som blir innkalt til med det, der vi skal komme på gode ideer. Nå skal vi brainstorme, folkens. Kom med en god idé nå! Mediapuls, vi har møtt en av de mest innflytelsesrike personene i verden når det kommer til innovasjon, nemlig britiske Duncan Waddle. Nå bor han i USA, hvor han i nesten 30 år har jobbet i Walt Disney-konsernet, og der leder han jo også den kreative avdelingen. Du sliter med å finne noe mer kreativt enn den fyren her. Og vi møtte han i San Diego for å få gode tips til også hvordan du kan bli mer innovativ, uansett om selskapet ditt en enkeltmannsforetak, eller om du har titusenvis av mennesker under deg. Welcome to Mediapuls, Duncan.
Thank you very much.
What's the most important things when it comes to innovation? How can small companies or medium-sized companies actually manage to innovate?
You know, actually, I think the small companies have the advantage because they have to take risks because it's about survival. Innovation 4 or 5 years ago was very cool. Everybody had to have innovation. Innovation is now about survival. I would argue Macy's, Sears, JCPenney, Coles, those are the companies that are going to have a bigger time trying to innovate. Because I chatted to 3 people from Ford last week. I was in India. Ford's biggest problem is Ford knows how to make a motor car. And so they know how to make it. They've done it for 100 years. And there has to be a steering wheel in the car. No, not anymore, right? So now you've got Apple and Google coming in. They don't know how to make a car. That's their advantage.
But you always have these excuses that we don't have time, we don't have the resources, the money,
the 5 biggest barriers we found at Disney's a huge organization. The 5 biggest barriers we found at Disney were time. I don't have time to think, number 1. We didn't have a common language around creativity and innovation. We were a very risk-averse organization. Consumer insight was being underused, if not ignored. We were very product-centric. We make it, they will come. It doesn't work that way anymore. And then the last one is ideas get stuck, diluted, or killed as they move through the organization. But I will tell you, one of the smallest tips I could give, spend a day with your consumers in their house, not in a focus group, not behind a mirror. When you get couples, and invite them as couples. When you get individuals in a focus group or any research, they'll give you what they think you want to hear. When you get couples together, they police each other. So if you ask a dad why he goes to Walt Disney World in Florida, he's going to say, I play golf and I drink beer. I'm a manly man. But if his wife is next to him, she's going to say, no, dear, you did Small World 17 times back-to-back last year and got real, and it was your favorite ride. I was asked to do some work recently by Stanley Black & Decker. I know nothing about tools. I am not Mr. DIY. I think I changed the light bulb 20 years ago. So I went down to our biggest DIY store, Home Depot and Lowe's, and I just watched consumers at the point of purchase, and I listened. And I went back to Stanley Black & Decker and I said, look, guys, nobody cares that you're called Stanley anymore. My dad cared that you were called Stanley. He's dead. I sort of care that you're called Stanley, but I don't make anything. My children, they don't care that you're called Stanley or Black & Decker. They don't care that you're yellow and black or black and orange. They don't care if you're priced at $12.95 or $13.15. All those conversations, and I was there for 3 or 4 hours over 2 days. All those conversations at the point of choosing the tool, they're not talking about the brand or the price. They're talking about I'm building my dream kitchen. my dream living room, my dream bathroom, my dream house. Stanley's why is their brand differentiation could be is we're the brand that helps people build their dreams. Now think about that for a moment. Suddenly, if I'm the brand now that helps you build your dreams, do I have to stay in the tool industry or could I expand? And I told them the reason I think you'll have to expand is because in 5 years from now you won't exist, which was a little provocative, but not that much provocative. And they looked at me like, whoa, I can't believe you just said that. We will all have a 3D printer in our house. Somewhere between 5 and 7 years from now. It'll be clunky to begin with, but it's going to get better. And you'll go onto Amazon and you'll choose the pattern of whatever you want. It could be a chair, and you'll pay for it, but you're going to print it at home. If I can print anything I want 5 to 7 years from now, what will I use a tool for? So companies who are iterating and just meeting their quarterly results, I believe they'll be gone in less than 5 years. I believe if you don't have a why and a purpose, you're going to be really challenged. So for example, and this again is somewhat provocative, Coca-Cola. What's your why? Well, we sell sugary drinks to make people obese and fat, and we make quarterly results. If that's your why, our generation put up with that. Our children's generation, not so much. If you don't have a purpose, and your purpose ought to be also helping and serving the consumer at large, I think your brand will be under threat in the next decade.
But how can companies overcome these obvious obstacles that we have in everyday life, especially if the companies are not like that big? Coca-Cola is a huge company. But what about smaller companies? How can they manage to innovate, create the creativity and the space to innovate?
So first, take the time.
Yeah.
People say I don't have time to think, and then they schedule their calendar from 9 to 5 with meetings, presentations. Take the time to think. You'd be amazed. I asked people the other day, and if I ask your audience now, just to close your eyes for a second and ask yourself, where are you and what are you doing when you get your best ideas? You're going to hear people say shower, walking the dog, running, jogging, commuting, driving, about to wake up, about to fall asleep. Nobody says at work. Not one person ever says at work. So how do you get into that mindset when you are at work, when you need creativity? It's about playfulness. And if I were to ask people, to picture that last argument you were in with somebody, and then when you 5 minutes after the argument's over, and you're in the local coffee shop, and you sit down and you're a bit more relaxed, you're less angry. It's about 5 or 10 minutes after the argument's over, and pop. What just pops into your head? The killer one-liner that you wished you'd used during the argument, and you got nowhere to go with it. Why did it pop in? Why does it never come during the argument? Being in the argument is the same as being in the office. Yeah, and you hear yourself say, I don't have time to think. When you don't give yourselves time to think, you can't come up with that killer one-liner in the argument, and you can't come up with that big idea like you do in the shower. So give yourselves time to think in the office. I run something called Energizers. They are a fun activity. They take less than 2 minutes to do. All I'm doing is metaphorically placing you back in the shower so that I can open the door between your conscious and subconscious brain. Just enough to place you metaphorically back in the shower so you can have a big idea. Some people will say, I get my best ideas when I fall asleep or when I'm about to wake up. Google are doing a lot of research right now around creativity and sleep. They've put sleep pods in their offices. But a lot of people say, I get my best ideas when I'm about to fall asleep. Thomas Edison, one of the biggest inventors in the 20th century, he would fall asleep with a penny between his knees and a tin tray on the floor. As he would fall asleep, the muscles would relax, the penny would drop, it would hit the tray, it would wake him up, and he would write down whatever he was thinking, which is where the expression, when the penny drops, comes from. And that's how he invented.
One is to find inspiration for innovation and trying to find examples to follow. Where should we start to look? In America, in Australia?
No, well, actually, the hotbed of innovation, I would argue, is in Scandinavia. Scandinavia takes more risks. It's more pushy. It's more edgy. It's more bright. If you look at the brands in Scandinavia that are doing new and different things, IKEA is a great example. Disney looks at IKEA and says, wow, look at what these guys are doing. Did you see the Volvo, they did a campaign, the light paint. Did you see the light paint? So for those people who haven't seen it, it's this invisible paint that you can put on, and if you're a bicyclist, because they saw lots of people getting hit by cars, it's a spray paint, and essentially you can't see it during the day, but at night time you become completely luminous.
Putting something on that will make you scream out to drivers like me is a fantastic thing.
It was a brilliant idea. There was the random call a Swede day, which we saw it in Florida.
You will soon be connected to a random Swede somewhere in Sweden.
You know, and so how many of the Disney examples have you seen in Norway? Maybe, maybe not, right? So innovation is all around. Creativity is all around. It's about taking the time to go. And I would schedule, sad, but when you're in an office with lots of busy meetings and everything, I scheduled an hour a day called Time to Think. And I would go online and I would go to different sites and look at different examples. The other biggest example don't look in your own industry. Always look outside your own industry. There's a tool called Borrow It. And it's about, so for example, Speedo were challenged by the US Olympic team in 1996, make our swimmers go faster through water in time for the 2000 Olympic Games. So they looked out into the world, outside of the swimming Olympic industry, for inspiration of where in the world has somebody already solved the challenge of making things go faster through water. Fish, dolphins, sharks, torpedoes, speedboats. And they looked into each one and they tested a bullnose shark. If you pet a bullnose shark from nose to tail, it's very smooth. If you pet it the other way, you'll lose all the skin on your hand. Why? It has hundreds of thousands of pimples on its skin, which allow it to contain a microscopic air bubble underneath each pimple, which it can expand as it chooses to stop on a dime, such as the swimmer turning on the wall and coming back, or it could force that air pocket out as it wants to move like a bullet, such as the swimmer moving quickly forwards. They borrowed back the underlying principle behind that, created those one-piece suits that you saw all of the US Olympians wear to the Sydney Olympic Games. I want to say they broke 14 world records. It was considered so innovative it was banned. The Humble roll-on deodorant, great example. The roll-on deodorant, they looked outside their industry. We used to use aerosols. They weren't very environmentally friendly. And they said, where in the world has somebody already solved the challenge of applying a thin layer of liquid across a relatively smooth surface without it dripping? And they looked, not in the aerosol industry, they found the Humble ballpoint pen. All they did was make it wider and call it the roll-on deodorant. So I think most of the innovation actually comes from looking outside of your industry and borrowing the underlying principle and borrowing it back in.
If you look at the media industry, the publishers, the newspapers, how can they innovate themselves out of the crisis that they are in?
Well, that's a good challenge. I think that, well, look, because like so many people for years, they've been product-centric. We build it, they will come. So I'll tell a story and then I'll see if I can relate it back to the media industry. We were challenged by Disneyland Paris to make more people come more often and spend more money. So we could have spent millions of dollars on new fireworks, new attractions, new parades. But by spending a day with our consumer, what we found was that actually mum doesn't wake up in the morning thinking, gosh, I wonder if Disneyland Paris is going to have new fireworks this year. She doesn't. She wakes up every day worried about how quickly her children are growing up and how she wants to make special memories for them while they still believe, while they still hold my hand, and while they're still with me. And so instead of spending millions of dollars on new attractions, we actually spent money on a campaign which said Disneyland Paris, special memories while they still believe, while they still hold your hand, while they're still here. It was a completely consumer-centric approach. I think the media industry for too long has been, we will print the content, you will read it. I don't think it works that way anymore. I think they need to be much more consumer-centric. A lot of brands have stayed away from crowdsourcing. A lot of brands are worried that if they crowdsource, that there are some intellectual property issues to come across, that if somebody else comes up with the idea, I'll have to pay them lots of money. I actually believe more brands are actually, it's not about fear of intellectual property rights, it's fear of losing their job if somebody else comes up with the idea. But I think the brands that participate with their consumers and ask consumers to design, create products and services, including articles, including videos, instead of becoming the content creator. So you think of traditional publishers and you think of the success of social media. What does social media do? Instagram doesn't make anything. They let everybody else do it. They move to a content curator. And I just wonder if in the world of publishing, a lot of publishers couldn't move from content creator to content curator.